the Upanishads in two parts. Part 2, translated by F. Max Muller. Svetasvatara Upanishad, 4th Adhyaya. He, the sun, without any color, who, with set purpose, by means of his power, Sakti, produces endless colors, in whom all this comes together in the beginning and comes asunder in the end. May he, the entity, endow us with good thoughts. That self indeed is Agni, fire. It is Aditya, sun. It is Vayu, wind. It is Kandramas, moon. The same also is the starry firmament. It is Brahman, Aranyagarbha. It is water. It is Pragapate, Virag. Thou art woman, thou art man, thou art youth, thou art maiden. Thou as an old man totterest along on thy staff. Thou art born with thy face turned everywhere. Thou art the dark blue bee. Thou art the green parrot with red eyes. Thou art the thundercloud, the seasons, the seas. Thou art without beginning, because thou art infinite. Thou from whom all worlds are born. There is one unborn being. Female. Red, white, and black, uniform, reproducing manifold offspring. There is one unborn being. Male, who loves her and lies by her. There is another who leaves her while she is eating what has to be eaten. The two birds, inseparable friends, cling to the same tree. One of them eats the sweet fruit, the other looks on without eating. On the same tree man sits grieving, immersed, bewildered by his own importance. Isa. But when he sees the other Lord, Isa, contented, and knows his glory, then his grief passes away. He who does not know that indestructible being of the Rig Veda, that highest ether-like self, wherein all the entities reside, of what use is the Rig Veda to him? Those only who know it rest contented, that from which the Maker, Mayan, sends forth all this, the sacred verses, the offerings, the sacrifices, the panaccias, the past, the future, and all that the Vedas declare. In that the other is bound up through the Maya. Know then, Prakriti, nature, is Maya, art, and the great Lord, the Mayan maker. The whole world is filled with what are his members. If a man has discerned him who, being one only, rules over every germ, cause, in whom all this comes together and comes asunder again, who is the Lord, the bestower of blessing, the adorable God, then he passes forever into that peace. He, the creator and supporter of the entities, Rudra, the great seer, the Lord of all, who saw Hiranyagarbha being born, may he endow us with good thoughts. He who is the sovereign of the entities, he in whom all the worlds rest, he who rules over all two-footed and four-footed beings, to that entity let us sacrifice an oblation. He who has known him who is more subtle than subtle, in the midst of chaos, creating all things, having many forms, alone enveloping everything, the happy one, Siva, passes in peace forever. He also was in time the guardian of this world, Lord of all, hidden in all beings. In him the Brahma precious and the entities are united, and he who knows him cuts the fetters of death asunder. He who knows Siva, the blessed, hidden in all beings, like the subtle film that rises from out the clarified butter, alone enveloping everything. He who knows the entity is freed from all fetters. That entity, the maker of all things, the great self, always dwelling in the heart of man, is perceived by the heart, the soul, the mind. They who know it become immortal. When the light has risen, there is no day, no night, neither existence nor non-existence. Siva, the blessed, alone is there, and that is the eternal, the adorable light of Svetasvatara, and the ancient wisdom proceeded thence. No one has grasped him above or across or in the middle. There is no image of him whose name is great glory. His form cannot be seen. No one perceives him with the eye. Those who through heart and mind know him thus, abiding in the heart, become immortal. Thou art unborn. With these words, someone comes near to thee, trembling. O Rudra, let thy gracious face protect me forever. O Rudra, hurt us not in our offspring and descendants. Hurt us not in our own lives, nor in our cows, nor in our horses. Do not slay our men in thy wrath. For holding oblations, we call on thee always. And verse 22 here. See Colebrook, Miscellaneous Essays 1, page 141, Rigveda 1, 114, 8, Taittiriya Samhita 4, 5, 10, 3, Bhagavad Samhita 16, 16. The various readings are curious. Ayusha in the Svetasvatara Upanishad instead of Agyao in the Rigveda is supported by the Taittiriya Samhita and the Bhagavad Samhita, but Vijnanatman reads Agyao. As to Brahmito, it seems the right reading, being supported by the Rigveda, the Taittiriya Samhita, and the Svetasvatara Upanishad, while Brahmito in Rower's edition is a misprint. The Bhagavad Samhita alone reads Brahmino, which Mahidara refers to Viran. The last verse in the Rigveda and the Bhagavad Samhita is Havish Manta Saddam It Taba Havamahe. In the Taittiriya Samhita, Havish Manto Namasa Vidhamate. In the Svetasvatara Upanishad, Havish Manta Sara Setvavamahe. As printed by Rower, seems to rest on Sankara's authority only. The other commentators, Sankarananda and Vijnanatman, read and interpret Saddam It. And in verse 21, thy glorious face, Dakshina is explained either as invigorating, exhilarating, or turned toward the south. Verse 10, verse 20, those who through heart, B reads Hreda, Manisha, Manasa, Bik, Lipto, Yat, Tad, Vidor. A reads Hrede, Hredestam, Manasaya, and Namevam Vidur. And 19 in the middle. See Mueller's metrical translations, page 198, Taittiriya Upanishad 6:17. And the light of Savitre, mentioned verse 18, referring to the Gayatri, Rigveda 3:62-10. See also Svetasvatara Upanishad 5:4. And neither existence nor non-existence. See on the difficulty translating Sat and Asat, To on and To Mah on, and the remarks in the prefix. So comparing it to that Greek example. The light has risen. The Atamas, no darkness, i.e. light of knowledge. And 17, the soul, the mind, C3:13, the great self, or the high-minded. Verse, the clarified butter, mentioned in verse 16, we should say like cream from milk, and then are united, verse 15, because both the Brahmarshis, the holy seers, and the light beings, the devatas, find their true essence in Brahman. There was in time, verse 15 as well, Sankara, And verse 14, enveloping everything, 3, 7. So the previous program. And to that God, he says, in verse 13, I read tasma'e instead of kasma'e, a various reading mentioned by Vijñanatman. It was easy to change tasma'e into kasma'e because of the well-known line in the Rig Veda, kasma'e, devaya, havisha, videma. Those who read kasma'e explain it as a dative of ka, a name of pragapati in which the dative should be kaya and not kasma'e. It would be better to take kasma'e as the dative of the interrogative pronoun. See M.M.'s History of Ancient Sanskrit Literature, page 433, and Vitana Sutras 422. And those who saw verse 12, B reads Yasmin Devah, not A. And verse 12 in general, Sankara does not explain this verse again, though it differs from 3-4. Vijñanatman explains pasyata by apasyata and qualifies the atmanapada as irregular. And 3-4, so the previous program being referred to with verse 12. But 3-7 is referred to verse 14. And verse 9, Mayan as maker. It is impossible to find terms corresponding to Maya and Mayan. Maya means making or art, but as all making or creating so far as the Supreme Self is concerned is phenomenal only, or mere illusion. Maya conveys at the same time the sense of illusion. In the same manner, Mayin is the maker, the artist, but also the magician or juggler. What seems intended by our verse is that from the Akshara, which corresponds to Brahman, all proceeds whatever exists or seems to exist, but that the actual creator or the author of all emanations is Isa, the Lord who as creator is acting through Maya, or Devatmasakte, or Devat Masakte. Possibly, however, Anya or the other may be meant for the individual Purusha. And obviously, at some point I may edit these things, right? Verse 8. It's difficult to see how this verse comes in here. In the Tatra Aranyaka 2-6, it is quoted in connection with the syllable Om, the Akshara, in which all the Vedas are comprehended. It is similarly used in the Nrisimha Purva Tapani 4-5 and 5-2. In our passage, however, Akshara is referred by Sankara to the Paramatman, and I have translated it accordingly. Rikah is explained as a genitive singular, but it may also be taken as a nominative plural, and in that case, both verses of the Veda and the entities are said to reside in the Akshara, whether we take it for the Paramatman or for the Om. The latter case, Parama Vyoman, is explained by Utkrishta and Rakshaka. And the same verses, we're listing 6 here, occur in the Mundaka Upanishad 3:1. Verse 5. This is again one of the famous verses of our Upanishad because it formed for a long time a bone of contention between Vedanta and Sankhya philosophers. The Sankhyas admit 2 principles, the Purusha, the absolute objective, and the Prakriti, generally translated by nature. The Vedanta philosophers admit nothing but the one absolute subject and look upon nature as due to a power inherent in that subject. The latter, Sankhyas, therefore, who are as anxious as the Vedantins, find authoritative passages in the Veda confirming their opinions, appeal to this and other passages to show that their view of Prakriti is an independent power supported by the Veda. The whole question is fully discussed in the Vedanta Sutras 1-4-8. Here we read Rohita Krishna Suklam, which seems preferable to Lohita Krishna Varnam. at least from a Vedanta point of view, where the three colors, red, black, and white, are explained as signifying ether, and the three gunas, ragas, sattva, and tamas, are better. Kandoga Upanishad 6.3.1, the three elements, takas, fire, up, water, and ana, earth. A reads Rohita Sukla Krishnam. B reads Lohita Sukla Krishna. We also find in A and B Bhukta Bogam for Bhukta Bogyam, but the latter seems technically the more correct reading. It would be quite wrong to imagine that Aga and Aga are meant here for he-goat and she-goat. These words, in the sense of unborn, are also recognized as early as the hymns of the Rig Veda, and they occurred in our Upanishad 1.9, where the two Agas are mentioned in the same sense as here, but there is no doubt a play on the words, and the poet wished to convey the second meaning of he-goat and she-goat, only not as the primary, but as the secondary intention. And art without beginning, we see throughout the constant change from the masculine to the neuter gender in addressing either the Lord or his true essence. And in verse 3, Totterist, Van Kyasa, an exceptional form instead of Van Kasa, as A and B have. And in verse 2, Starry Firmament, this is an explanation of Sankara and probably that of the yoga schools in India at its time, but to take Sukram for Deeptiman, Nakshatrade, Brahma for Hiranyagarbha, and Pragapata for Virag seems suggested by this verse only. And in verse 1, good thoughts. This verse has been translated very freely. It stands Ve ka ete kante visvam adausa devah. It does not construe, in spite of all attempts to the contrary made by Sankara. What is intended is Yasmin idam samka vekaete sarvam 4.11. But how so simple a line should have been changed into what we read now is difficult to say. People are changing the lines to more line fit with their doctrines, like the Catholic Church when they rendered their version of the Septuagint. We understand that, right? Colors intended for qualities and differences and so on, and set purpose. Nehitartha, explained by Sankara as Grehita Prayogana. Savartha Nira Peksha. This may mean with a set purpose, but if we read Agrahita Prayogana, it would mean the contrary, namely without any definite object, irrespective of his own objects. This is possible and perhaps more in accordance with the idea of creation as propounded by those whom the Devatmasakta is Maya. Nihita would mean then hidden.